Yo, what is going on, everyone in the XRP community? Hope you guys are having yourselves a fantastic day today. As usual, we got an urgent warning. It is about to happen. The SEC is stepping out of line in the Ripple versus SEC case, but not only that, they are incredibly reaching over and creating rules for themselves. The CFTC knows it. Brad Garlinghouse knows it. The whole world knows it. And I think something on the federal level is going to happen with the SEC because they essentially just gave themselves a perception of jurisdiction over the cryptocurrency market when in reality, all they have jurisdiction over are securities. Okay? Stocks, things on the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and S&P 500. Those are securities. These digital tokens on decentralized ecosystems, they're not securities. Okay? They are not securities. And they have given themselves this false authority, and they're getting called out by the CFTC, which is essentially their neighbor agency, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. They have literally called out the SEC for their overreaching and acting out of their own jurisdiction, which just in the recent SEC hearing by the United States Committee of Financial Services with who's the freaking good guy, that congressman that's pro crypto, Tom Emmer, I believe, right? He got the SEC to even admit they are acting out of jurisdiction when it comes to just regular companies with the industry sweeps. Literally fucking admitted that they are like acting out of their jurisdiction with industry sweeps. All right. So guys, it's going to come all to an end, and this reign of terror by Gary Gensler and the SEC over a fucking market that they don't even have jurisdiction over. Nobody gave them jurisdiction. The Securities and Exchange Commission has jurisdiction over securities, man. Fucking stocks. That's pretty much it. But they branched out and just started inventing rules out of the dark. And then what's funny is they don't even want to help this innovation. They want to stifle it and do regulation by enforcement, which is essentially entrapment, and they're getting fucking called out on it by the CFTC. Brad Garlinghouse backing up the CFTC statements, and all of goddamn Twitter knows what's happening. Something will happen at a federal level, and there's actually was something that already did happen at a federal level. The SEC came out with a regulation for the New York Stock Exchange. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something that went to the 9th Circuit District Court, and the 9th Circuit District Court basically said, hell no, absolutely not, and reversed the regulation. The same thing's going to happen with cryptocurrency. We are not even looking for settlement in the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit. We are looking for the case to be thrown out completely. I mean, if we do get settlement, we could, trade, little settlement pay for clarity. I don't know. I don't know what the hell's going to happen, dude, but all I know is the SEC is going to come to an abrupt halt with their digital asset enforcement. I mean, regulation by enforcement. How do you set rules by attacking people? That makes no sense. Look at this. David Schwartz. I'm shocked. Literally shocked. Guys, we got a whole thread here by Jake Chervinsky. This guy, he used to kind of talk about XRP, but really not anymore. He kind of actually doesn't like the XRP army anymore. I can't remember why exactly, but this guy came out with some statements and stuff like that, and the XRP army started backlashing at him, and then he officially said one day oh, I am no longer talking about XRP. But anyways, he has a freaking huge thread about the SEC and Coinbase. As you guys know, the SEC is charging a former Coinbase employee, his brother, and his friend with wire fraud. But then they transitioned that and tried to say that the assets they were insider trading were securities now. So what? Just because those assets get insider traded by an exchange, now they're just all of a sudden it just pops up into their brain oh, I'm seeing this. These coins are coming up in this one, wire fraud lawsuit. Okay, yeah, those are actually securities now. I mean, mind blowing about the absolute insanity of the SEC because they don't have jurisdiction over cryptocurrency. That's not their place. All right. So here, we're going to speed read this whole thread, all right? And Coinbase has also come out with a article today, clearly stating, we don't list securities. Anyways, all right, let's speed read this thing. Can we get some ultra zoom? Nah, that looks a little scuffed. We'll do like that. All right. The SEC filed a complaint yesterday accusing 10 companies of violating the securities laws, 9 digital asset issuers and 1 exchange. None of them are defendants in the case. None of them will get their day in court. If this isn't regulation by enforcement, nothing is. Some background. The defendants are 3 individuals, a former Coinbase employee, his brother, and his friend who allegedly engaged in insider trading. Like 7-8 months ago, when it was coming up on Twitter that there was like a certain Ethereum wallet that literally bought every single coin that was going to be listed the next day on Coinbase. I remember seeing that and just thinking, probably nothing's ever going to happen to it, never going to get charged with anything. But I think that might be the exact same Ethereum dress we're talking about here. Is his former Coinbase employee, his brother, and his friend who allegedly engaged in insider trading. In addition to the SEC suit, the Department of Justice indicted them for criminal wire fraud. Okay, so the whole case is about wire fraud, nothing to do with, this crypto's a security. This crypto's like an investment contract. Okay, not about that. It's just strictly about criminal wire fraud. To be clear, I'm not trying to excuse insider trading or fraud in any way. If the allegations are true, these defendants should be held accountable. But we can and should condemn both the defendants' alleged conduct and the SEC's unjust tactics too. The SEC alleges that the defendants committed securities fraud by using material non-public information to trade ahead of a Coinbase listing announcement. To establish jurisdiction, the SEC claims that the assets in question, 9 digital assets, are unregistered securities. So just because they were insider traded, now they're unregistered securities somehow. Like, I don't even know what the coins are. Probably don't even support them in the first place if I did find out what they were. But they're not securities, man. Come on. As far as I know, the SEC has never addressed these assets before. And I think he's right, because we would have heard about that, because we pretty much hear about every coin they call a security. Like EOS or what's the other one? Telegram, right? We learned the SEC's views of the fact patterns that it believes qualify them as securities for the first time in a federal complaint rather than in guidance or rulemaking. This is regulation by enforcement. It's not uncommon to learn for the first time that an enforcement agency has identified a violation when a complaint is filed. But typically that happens when the agency files an action against the person who they think broke the law. This is different, very different. Here, the SEC isn't just accusing the defendants of breaking the law. The SEC is also accusing 10 unrelated, uncharged companies of breaking the law, 9 for failure to register digital asset security, which is complete bullshit because they don't have jurisdiction over cryptocurrency because they're not securities. They're decentralized ecosystems. And 1 for operating an unregistered national securities exchange. And like what? If you're going after one crypto exchange for being unregistered security, then you're going after all of them then. Like, oh my God, the SEC is stifling the innovation so much here. I can't wait for something to happen at the federal level that pulls away their right to go after these cryptocurrency companies. Despite leveling accusations against uncharged companies in public, the complaint is devoid of legal analysis. The SEC just makes a few allegations of fact and then summarily, dude, I should have stayed in school, man. Summarily concludes that they satisfy Howey. But surely these are securities, you say. To win, the SEC must prove that one or more of these assets is a security. In a real sense, these companies are on trial too. But because the SEC didn't name them as defendants, they aren't allowed to defend themselves in court. On principle, this is deeply unfair and unjust. The individual defendants are now on the hook for litigating the security status of all 9 assets and for paying for the cost of defending 9 separate sub-trials. The amount of money that would take is astronomical. If I were cynical, I'd say that's why the SEC did it this way. It's even worse than that, though. Some of these assets are currently listed on other trading platforms in the USA. Those platforms now have to wonder if they should delist the assets identified by the SEC to protect themselves from enforcement. We saw that happen to XRP. Just by making unproven accusations in an enforcement action, the SEC can impose obligations on platforms and restrictions on companies of a type that usually requires a regulation. Like literal just bullying at this point. Literally, regulation by enforcement, entrapment, bullying. But unlike actual regulation, no opportunity to be heard. The SEC isn't supposed to act like this, accusing people of breaking the law without bringing an action from its website. It is the general policy of the SEC to conduct its investigations on a confidential basis to preserve the integrity of its investigative process, which is bullshit, as well as to protect persons against whom unfounded charges may be or where the SEC determines that enforcement action is not necessary or appropriate. The SEC should keep its accusations confidential until and unless it sues the wrongdoer. This week, the SEC's enforcement director testified in Congress and refused to answer some questions for this very reason, confidentiality. For example, on exchange actions, he said, "I can't talk about what matters we're looking at or not looking at." That's the same director who said last November that the SEC doesn't engage in regulation by enforcement, which they literally do, even though everyone in the bar and everybody in the industry believes that this is not accurate and has never been so. Even other high-ranking officials have come out to explain that this is a quintessential case of regulation by enforcement. Here's CFTC Commission Caroline Pham with a strong statement of the sort you don't often see from a leader of one agency to another. And this is backed up by Brad Garlinghouse. The case SEC versus Wahi is a striking example of regulation by enforcement. The SEC complaint alleges that dozens of digital assets, including those that could be described as utility tokens and or certain tokens relating to decentralized autonomous organizations, are securities. The SEC's allegations could have broad implications beyond this single case, underscoring how critical and urgent it is that regulators work together. Major questions are best addressed through a transparent process that engages the public to develop appropriate policy and expert input. Through notice and comment rulemaking pursuant to the Administrative Procedure Act, regulatory clarity comes from being out in the open, not in the dark. Getting called up by another agency. Honestly, guys, what I think this is there is a couple of big players that have the most to lose from the success of digital assets. That's what I think this is. If they got their pockets lined up with the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, like 4 officials from the SEC who all went to go back to previous firms and work for firms and funds that are, literally funded by the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, I don't doubt that there's some, let's just say, big boys that cryptocurrency succeeding threatens their business model and their way of profit. Because this is like, dude, to have a neighbor agency in the government literally call you out, man, that's pretty big. That's pretty big. Something's going to happen here at a federal level, guys. It's going to happen. So you might say the SEC is just doing its job, going after bad actors in crypto, and we should forgive defects like these for the greater good. Maybe that's what the SEC hopes you'll say. Don't. DOJ charged wire fraud, not securities fraud. There's no purpose to the SEC piling on, at least, not if the goal is to see bad actors punished and justice done. Instead, the bad actor here is the SEC, for fuck's sake. This appears to be another effort by the SEC to expand its own regulatory authority over the crypto markets by enforcement without doing the hard work of proving that the securities laws apply. Literally, man. The SEC, it's not a government agency, bro. It's a fucking business, man. They bully these little companies that are just getting bootstrapped off the ground and fucking siphon a 30 million settlement out of them just to bully them, dude. They're fucking business, man. Government is a fucking business, bro. It's a business. It's like anything else. Bring in as much money. Don't let that much money slip out. Pocket all the profits, man. It's a freaking business. I mean, why the hell is Gary Gensler's net worth fucking, like $100 million? Like, what the fuck did he do? What? Just be in the government this whole time? Give me a break. It's also worth noting that one of the 10 uncharged companies has already come forward to aggressively challenge the SEC's unproven accusations. Read the Coinbase chief legal officer pointed and astute response to the case here. I agree. Coinbase does not list securities. End of story. Is that literally all he said? Oh, I thought it was literally just going to be a one line. Like, that's the whole thing. But anyways, it's sad but not surprising to see the SEC continue its unfair attacks on crypto. As I said, we knew the SEC planned to ramp up enforcement this year, so I assume this is only the beginning. I hope their next move won't be so unfair and unjust. And guys, something's going to happen at the federal level here. They have essentially, the SEC has granted themselves authority over cryptocurrency, and someone's going to take that away. Thank you for tuning in the video today, guys. I would appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one.